Touchdown, Chargers! Welcome to Chargers Weekly, getting rolling here on the morning of the day of the Joe Ortiz, Chad Alexander press conferences. A little bit later today, so certainly going to have some more to react to off of that. But Jahleel, as you know, in draft season, everybody holds their cards close to the vest. So it's not like they're going to tell you what they're looking at in the first, second, third, what they want to come out of the draft with their 10 picks. But certainly you could get an overview of the offseason thus far. You know, we've had a little bit of that in each of these pressers for each of these players, but just to kind of talk about it as a collective whole and how they were able to build this roster out going into the draft. As we've said multiple times, the number one goal is not to feel like you have any needs, like, dire needs. We've got to take this position in this draft, and that player has got to be able to get on the field for, either starter reps or rotation reps. That's the one thing you're trying to avoid when you get in and then get out of free agency. And I feel like they've accomplished that, save maybe one position. And I don't mean to slight, the Naquan Jones and Deshaun Hand signings, but I think the way it's just something that Coach Harbaugh said about Puna when he said that one left a bruise. That leads you to believe that if they had a chance to do it all over again, Puna they would have liked to have made that work, and then that would have settled that particular position. And I think that's why you go through all these mock drafts and you see so many people mocking defensive tackles to the Chargers, because it does, if there is one, it feels like that's probably the one spot where you'd feel a little bit better if you had a high floor prospect coming in.
Yeah, and I think it's really just based on what Harbaugh likes to do, right? We talk about it week in and week out. It's just he likes to build those trenches. And, we have the edge rushers, to get pressure on the quarterback. But a lot of people don't understand is you can have really, really good edge rushers, right? They can rush up the field. But if you don't have anybody to push the pocket, I'm talking at an elite rate, right? Consistent rate. That all that quarterback is going to do is step up in the pocket, set his feet. The tackles are going to wash our premier pass rushers by, and he's getting them set up and he's going to make the throw. So I think what the Chargers were missing last year was that interior push, week in and week out, first down, second down, and third down. And what you're saying that I can't disagree with you. Now, will the D tackle be there that they want? We don't know, right? Right. But being in the building, just my experience, coaching and being in those offices, look, when they have a board, it's free agency board, a draft board, and they got their top 10 at each position. And the draft it's a rat race, right? Somebody goes, they scratch them off, and they're saying, okay, what's our next best option? So, man, next week's going to be really, really intriguing. I'm excited to see what they do.
Here's what I'd love for you to get into as someone that played defensive back. You always hear about a connected defense and how to get that connected defense that everybody wants in this league. And is it pass rush that forces the quarterback to get the ball out a little bit quicker? So maybe a lower level secondary is able to make a little bit more hay than they otherwise might normally be able to? Or is it a dominant secondary that has incredible coverage that gives the quarterback has to hold it a second longer because he can't find anybody that's open? So when you look at sort of, what I'm trying to get to is Will Johnson didn't run his 40. Everybody wanted him to run the 40. Everyone's talked about the speed. They're not crazy. If they just go back to the 2023 tape, it's a no-brainer that he's the number one corner in this draft. Obviously, Coach Harbaugh and Jesse Minter won a national championship with him. Again, Steve Klinkscale won a national championship with him. But that's sort of a little bit of a buzz right now is, he's talking about, I'm not quite ready. And then he does his pro day so close to the draft and just, not quite feeling right yet. And everyone's saying when you look at him, it looks like maybe he's, a 4.5 guy, a 4.55 guy, like kind of in that range. And that may be why he's not running. So I bring it up because if Will is there,
right,
and even if let's just expand it beyond that, let's say Barron's there because he's a smaller guy. He's not going to fit into every system. He would certainly fit into Jesse Minter's system, I think, right? They play more zone than anywhere. They play more quarters than anywhere. But how would corner, if that's the direction they go? If it's Harrison, if it's I think those are probably
the top
big three.
Those are like the top three. It's not a heavy. Not a heavy pack corner draft.
No. So if that's the choice, let's say one of those guys is there, Jahleel. Kind of walk us through how that helps this defense when everyone's just so focused on the trenches, But if they feel like, hey, this is a number one corner, and that's a premium position and a premium player, and we're getting it at 22.
I said a couple weeks ago I liked Will, and we didn't think that he'd be there. So
Yeah.
I will say that Harbaugh, just with Junior Colson last year, he likes his guys, right? He
Yep.
knows his family. He recruited them, knows them from a
Mhm.
pup, and you said it. So how does the pass rush and how does the coverage work together? A defensive coordinator in 2017 by the name of Gus Bradley would always harp on defensive meetings: rush and cover work together, right? There's going to be some games where the defensive linemen are on fire and we're struggling to cover. But like you said, they're getting there before that quarterback can get that second pat off, that second read off, and he's hit, right? And there's been time where I was covering somebody, or we watched film and Casey or another DB was covering somebody and they were open, right? May have been miscommunication, poor technique, but they didn't get the ball out because the pass rush got there, right? And the same thing with us. That sometimes we were only rushing 4 and our defensive linemen weren't getting home. But what were we doing? We were playing really, really sticky coverage on the back end, which allowed them to get, use an extra pass move, run an extra to stunt, run an extra TE game with the tackle in the end. And then it frees them up and it gives them just that 1 second, right? It's game of inches, 1 second, and then we get that sack. So rush and cover work together. And when you're talking about just taking a corner, I would say, listen, Will, I think he's the number 1 corner in the draft. Everybody does. When you have talent like him, there's no need to run, right? Because all
Yeah.
you're going to do is hurt your stock, right? Everybody knows you turn on the tape. He's a football player. He's a shutdown corner. He has a knack for the ball, and I think drafting him to the Chargers would be a really, really, really good asset for us right now. Obviously, the offseason acquisitions were more veterans, right? We don't have a true lockdown,
Like number
shutdown
one. Yeah.
number 1 corner. Like, hey, this week you're following him. This week you're following him. We don't have that right now with the Chargers. Overall, as a group, a really good group, a really solid group, a lot of guys that can play different positions inside, outside. So I'm not mad at that pick. I even suggested it a few weeks ago. I just don't know
Yeah.
if Will be there. Barron, he can play more of that. He's a smaller guy, like you said. He can play outside, but I kind of see him more of like a nickel back, right? He has a shorter stature. He can blitz. A lot of teams like to do COS, which is change of strength motion, right? Put the nickel to the field, jet sweep motion across. He has no time to motion over, so they bump him into the box, and now he's in the run fit as a linebacker. And he has that build, where he can fill those gaps. He can see the
Right.
guards pulling and get down and dirty.
Yeah, look, corners are wild, right? I mean, you got guys like Porter that are 6'3", 198 pounds and are running 4.3 40s out there. And then,
Yeah.
you look at Barron and he's a 5'10" and a half, maybe 5'11" guy, but he brings some thump. He's got great instincts. We
Yeah.
talked about Hairston and his 4.3 40. A lot of people love Trey Amos and what he did at Ole Miss. I'm just kind of going through the list that's right in front of me now. So it certainly feels strong at the top. But just to build out on the corner thing, right? I think they can get a solid corner in the second round. As I'm kind of looking at
Of
this
course.
list, the Thomas from Florida State, obviously his DC is now the safeties coach for the Chargers. I know there were some current concerns about his speed, but he's got the measurables. I want to pull up
Right.
what his 40 was. I don't think, he didn't run it. But he's 6'2" with 30, almost 33-inch arms. I mean, he's just freaking Mothra out
And
there.
it's crazy you said that the NFL fell in love. Like back in the day, they wanted short, quick,
Right.
real agile cornerbacks. But when the Richard Sherman era came along, they fell in love
Brandon
with those.
Browner.
Yeah, Brian Browner. You remember those
Yeah.
guys? They were
Oh, yeah, dude.
6'4", 6'3", long levers, get their hands on you. They don't give you much room at the line of scrimmage, right? And the NFL fell in love with that kind of, mantra, right? And that's what they continue to like. They like big corners. They like
Yeah.
guys who can go up and attack the ball. So every system's different, right? And it's like being a baker, right? Everybody has their own way of doing things, and everybody has a different system and their own way of doing things and what they like and attributes and guys. So it's tough, man. It's tough to project what's going to happen. A lot of times you have an idea, but like you said, next week will be very interesting.
Yeah, the other development in the backfield is that the Jags the Miami Dolphins are shopping Jalen Ramsey.
I've seen that.
And, I know look, do I know? No. I'm assuming Derwin James has already made that call to Joe
Oh, that's all
Ortiz.
day.
All day. He has
Yeah.
been desperate to play with his friend Jalen Ramsey, his
He's been
teammate
doing that
Jalen
since I
Ramsey,
was there.
right? Forever. Figure out a way
Yeah,
to get Jalen. Figure out a way to get Jalen. It's a big number. He's still one of the best corners
for sure.
in the league. but I bring it up because could I see it happening? Yeah, they have the money. It's,
Mhm.
it's a 1-year deal and it's an elite player that you add to an elite group. But as someone that coached in training camp, these defensive backs with that group, with Coach O'Leary and Coach Cleanscale and Coach Minter and all those guys, Jahleel, do they need, like, does this defense need an elite shutdown corner, or did we kind of see sort of the magic of this defense last year with guys like Tarheeb and Christian Fulton and Cam Hart all playing at a high level, and even in the secondary for the safety position with,
Right.
Elijah Molden turning into a really impactful player
Yeah, good
after
starter.
not
Yeah.
necessarily being viewed as one in Tennessee. Like, does that make sense? Like, how
No, it
would you,
does.
yeah, talk about building this secondary when you're committing resources, high draft picks, money? Do you need to do that? Or is there something about what Coach Minter and these coaches do that allow fifth round picks like Tarheeb and Cam Hart to really shine out there?
No, we touched on it like, hey, this with injuries and free agents and moving guys around and shuffle them inside to outside. Do they need? I don't think they need, right?
Right.
But if they want to get over the hump, right, that first round, that second round, and deep into the playoffs and the Super Bowl, which is everybody's goal, I think they do, right? I think they do because, like we know, there's a lot of injury, and it's 100% injury rate sport, and we don't know what next season holds as far as injuries. Knock on wood. But when you have a guy like Jalen Ramsey, when you have a shutdown corner, you can game plan. You can focus on so much other stuff, right? You can say, "Hey, listen, Jalen, you're going to play boundary. You're going to take away the X. We can roll coverage to the field. We can double. We can squat the field. There's so much more you can do when you have a shutdown corner versus, hey, right now we have so and so. They have a really big threat at wide receiver. We got a game plan to have safety stay over top here. So now we're losing leverage on one side. It's just a lot of moving pieces that you have to do, which the Chargers do really well, as we've seen, right? They do that really well. But if you have a shutdown corner like a Ramsey or like a Patrick Surtain in the league, that makes the defensive coordinator sleep well at night because he's not game planning so much of like a big umbrella, right? It's more so, hey, you take care of their number one, and then we'll shift and move coverages to different looks, different formations that we've seen and tendencies that we've seen throughout the week and throughout the season.
Yeah, the thing with Ramsey too, for me, like I pulled up I forgot what the exact number was, but 8 targets, 7 catches, 122 yards, a touchdown, 6 first downs, a long of 41. That's Nico Collins in the wild
Yep.
card game.
Yep.
Like you have that Will Johnson, the Jalen Ramsey, and you can just say, hey man, we are not afraid of anybody else.
Exactly.
This is number one. We got to keep an eye on CJ's legs, and we got to keep an eye on Nico. And outside of that, and look, they did it. They did it for a half. They did it for almost 2.5 quarters,
Yeah.
into the middle of the third. And then finally, it's just like
But
elite players.
you've seen the breakthrough.
Yeah, elite
Yeah.
players are elite players, and they will shine in the postseason. So I plant that here, and then
Right.
over here, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit, I think, and talk about the division.
Yeah.
And what's the easiest path to the playoffs? Winning your division. You're going to play
course.
6 games against the Raiders, against the Broncos, and against the Chiefs. And Raiders no longer have Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. They're talking about drafting Ashton Genty. Maybe they draft T-Mac. I don't know if there's a number one receiver out there for them to put up. So you don't have a number one receiver there. You'll get the Broncos. Cortland Sutton, very good. Very, very good. But I wouldn't call him a number one.
But he doesn't scare you. You got
That's
to
what I
know where
mean.
he is, but it's not like
Right.
you're just game planning him.
It's not Nico Collins. It's,
No.
and then you go to the Chiefs, and, I know he had a solid first season. I'm just not crazy. Like, I just don't. Xavier Worthy, he's got the speed, but there's, if you had a J, if you had a,
you got to show me again.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like, so how, then I try to figure out, okay, how do you, when you know that the Raiders are probably going to be a pretty physical team.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Payton likes to be physical and at the line of scrimmage, and they're talking about him taking Omari and Hampton and trying to get a little more bully in them as well. And it's more of just a short passing sort of accuracy game with he and Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
And, Kansas City's just, I don't know how to describe Kansas City, right? It's like, it's whatever Patrick Mahomes wants to make it. And it's always great. So
yeah.
so that's what I'm getting at. Like, is drafting a number one corner are you drafting for the division, or are you better off drafting that defensive tackle? Because we got to look at what happens when Mahomes gets put under pressure immediately. You saw it
Right.
in the Super Bowl. We've
Right.
seen it in multiple games. What happens to Bo Nix if you get in his lap right away because he wants to get that ball out so quickly? Well, now you're speeding up that clock even more. And then obviously in the case of Vegas, I don't even know what they're going to look like. But you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. If you're drafting for the division, does it make sense to use a premium pick or use $20+ million on Jalen Ramsey or Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron or Hairston or whoever it may be?
I'm a DB and I'm gonna go D tackle. It's
Yeah.
just what it is, right? You're talking about run. You're talking about creating a new line of scrimmage. You're talking about forcing teams to play behind the sticks. What does play behind the sticks mean? Anytime that a team can get 3 or 4 yards on first down, they're playing ahead of the sticks. First down, if you can get a tackle for loss, now they're playing behind the sticks. It's 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13. That's defensive coordinators salivate because now their playbook is at their disposal. Then you talk about pass rush, right? And then we talked about Patrick Mahomes and how he likes to escape through the B gaps, right? There's an A gap right in between the center and the guard. Then there's the B gaps, right? And he likes to escape in the B gaps, make plays with his feet, act like he's going to run, toss it downfield. Defensive tackle, a very elite defensive tackle, takes that away. And then once again, Jesse Minter's scheme, it's a lot of zone eyes, right? Yeah, you're matching your body on a number, you're matching your body on a guy, but you can your eyes are on the quarterback. You're reading the quarterback. They call it 99.9. 90% of the time, your eyes are on the quarterback. You're leaning and moving to wherever he's looking. So, listen, I would love an elite cornerback, but I think as a need, as somebody who would impact the game, D-tackle, you can never go wrong with the trench. You can never go wrong with a D-tackle. You can run so many fancy coverages behind. You can do smoke and mirrors behind that defensive line with your linebackers and your back seven, right? And I think that's the route I would go if it's do or die.
Yeah, and it's a pass rushing D tackle. It's
1,000%.
Not that Kenneth Grant can't rush the passer, but that's not his specialty. He's just a massive human being. He moves with freakish athleticism for being 330 pounds, but at the same time, you're talking more of your Derek Harmon's, Walter Nolan's projected. You just kind of see the way Walter explodes off the ball and gets into the backfield, even though not necessarily the production numbers are there, but certainly sort of on that front. In the next round, you're maybe talking about an Norman Lott out of Tennessee, who was really just kind of a designated pass rusher as a D tackle, which really is what Morgan Fox was to some degree,
No, you're 100% right.
So that's sort of what's, a lot of, like I said, so many people have so here's what I'm getting at. Like, I figure if we just run like these mock draft simulators and we just do defense only, because I've said repeatedly, I do think if Colston Loveland's there, he's such an elite prospect that he would end up being the pick, even though they signed, Tyler Conklin and they have Will Dissly. It's just, to me, that guy
he's so future. You're looking at
he's so good. He's so big, athletic, strong, great at the catch point, great after catch. Yeah, it's the cliche with a tight end, right? He's too fast for linebackers. He's too big for defensive backs. There's nothing you can do, nothing you can do. So, but if we just focused on defense, and like right now, I ran it, and Grant's off the board, and I think Harmon's off the board. So you've got, is Harmon off the board here? He is not. So we've got Walter Nolan there. Where do they have? Geez, they got Derek Harmon ranked 42nd on this thing. So out of whack. Sorry. All out of this thing. So let me see if I can. So you have Walter Nolan. You've got, I guess technically you could put edge into that mix a little. Like, they have Omar Norman Law. Like, I just mentioned this. This is what's so weird. And I think, sorry for going all over the place.
Go on your rant, Lenny. Just go.
Well, it's just I think people pay so close attention to these sort of rankings and just view them as, okay, this is absolute. Right. This is one person's opinion or two people.
Agree.
So just remember, when you're looking at PFF and you're looking at their big board and you see Derek Harmon is all the way down at 42, well, understand there are teams in the NFL. I know for a fact there are teams in the NFL that have him as a top 20 rated player. Right. So if you feel like, oh, well, I was looking at PFF and they have him at 42, the Chargers really reached to get Derek Harmon. No, he's just way up per their scouts and their evaluation. he's got a grade that's considerably higher. So it makes these exercises, these mock draft, sort of these mock drafts, a little bit weird compared to
That's a
what.
that's a great point that you make, because a lot of times in the draft you see a guy go and then you'll see people like, what, they chose him at 15? Like, he had a third round grade or a second. Everybody's different. Like I
Yeah,
said, like some people, everybody's scouting department, everybody's personnel department rates guys at differently, and we will never know what that is, right? So with the mock draft, like you said, it's one or two guys' opinions, but those opinions really aren't valid. Those opinions really aren't concrete. It's their job. It's what they're
yeah,
supposed to do. So, like you said, if you see a guy on off the board that goes way earlier than you would think they would go, or way earlier than Mel Kiper would think, or Todd McShay would think, it's because the front office has done their due diligence and they feel like he fits their scheme really well. They've done a background check. They love his personality, and
yeah.
or they love his upside, right? So it's like, I just can't wait for next week, because once a year in and year out, you're going to have those 3 or 4 picks, even in the first round, first 2 rounds, where people are going to be scratching their head, and then come a year or two later, the stadium's full of his jerseys.
Yeah. I mean, look, I would say just look at the last 2 years on both sides of it. Last year's first round pick, number 5 overall. There were a number of people out there that were like, Alt's too tall.
Yep.
I'm worried, man. He's tall, and I'm uncomfortable drafting a 6'8" tackle that high, and and the Chargers were like, no, we're good with it.
Mm-hmm.
But there were people that were like, oh, I'd rather have Latham. He's a little more physical. I'd rather have Fuaga. He's a little bit more of a that was the conversation. I would trade down Joe, and now look where we are. The Chargers were right.
Yeah.
Go back a year before that when they drafted Q, and people were like, oh wow, that's early for Q. I had him, behind Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers and Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporte and all these guys. And it's like, well, yeah, but whoever was in the front office, that was their evaluation.
Exactly.
They evaluated Q that they had him ahead of those guys, or else they would have taken him.
Right.
And, still time for him to prove that he can ultimately become a better player than any of those guys that were taken behind him. But it works both ways. And that's just, every board is different. And that's why teams want to trade up. And that's why teams want to trade back, because of just how they have all those things individually rated. So just, again, Omar Norman Lott, he's a fun watch, man. He is, you want to talk about, I don't know who the D-line coach is at Tennessee, man, but those guys, Jahleel, they got, just watching James Pierce and Norman Lott,
James Pierce,
I have not seen
freak.
They're just get off.
Yeah.
I haven't seen guys time the snap. So it's like watching Warren Sapp, man. It's just like hike, bang.
Yeah.
The tackle doesn't even know, or the guards don't even know what the hell's going on. And Lott's already got a step on him. And same thing with Pierce. Like, they time it up so well.
Mm-hmm.
But Norman Lott, he didn't play any rundowns. Like, none. Never out there. It's all pass. It's the weirdest. And he was so good. But so they have him at 27. Meanwhile, Derek Harmon led the nation in pressures, quarterback pressures, as a defensive tackle, and helped guide Oregon to an undefeated record. And they got him down at 42. It's just weird the way that it all works. So if I were to, I'm just going to do this exercise. If I were to take a D tackle in the first round, like we talked about, and I think, why not take either Harmon or Nolan, the two explosive pass rush guys. Let's just, I always go with Nolan, so I'll just mix it up here and take Harmon, and then just see kind of how the rest of the draft plays out. When we get to corner in that second round, you have some interesting players there. You got Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, who had the injury. If he doesn't have the injury, he's probably going in the first round. I talked about Darien Porter. Here's your tools, your traits guy, 4'3", 11-foot broad, 40-inch vertical, and he's 6'3", 200 pounds. Yeah. And he's played cornerback for what? So here's the thing about Porter. This is an interesting one. I want to get your take on this. So last year he plays 12 games, 203 coverage snaps, and he allows 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's his year at Iowa State. Mm-hmm. It's his first year playing corner. First year. So there's not a lot of reps. And that's kind of what he was a wide receiver. So he's Richard Sherman. Yep. He's Richard Sherman at Stanford. 95th percentile in height and length. He is a track athlete as
Yeah.
well. But sixth-year player, so he's 24
A
already.
little older, yeah.
And he's a guy that blocked 3 punts too, by the way. So he's a special teams freaking stud. So
Brutal.
how do you reconcile all of that? Like, okay, we don't have a lot of tape. He's playing in the Big 12. Like, what would you do with a traits sort of good production, but just 1 year? How concerned would that make you to use a premium pick on a guy like that?
So I'm not. When you say premium, what round are we talking?
Second round pick. Look, last year's
It
second
just-
rounder was Lad McConkey. Year before that, second rounder was Thule. So you know how important those second round picks are, man.
And it all depends on what cornerbacks are left, right? It's not a heavy cornerback draft. With that being said, it's all about, does the front office feel like, does Jim Harbaugh feel like, does Jesse Minter feel like, with that blank canvas that he has, can they mold him into somebody they feel like he can be? Like, hey, okay, so if he had 2 more years of film doing that, he'd be a top 10 pig off of size, measurable in his productivity. But he doesn't. But he's a guy that, what you draft in the second round, like you said, special teams guys, he's going to give you productivity on special teams. And then he's going to be a guy that he can run with anybody. He has ball skills, and he can basically track down any big-time receiver, any fast receiver in the league. Now, he has to understand technique, which will be raw, right? Technique fundamentals, which will be raw, which they would have to harp on in OTAs, in training camp. But look, if there's not many guys that look like him and sound like him, right? As far as what he brings to the physical and the athletic side. If those top 3 corners that we spoke about are gone by the second round, which they could be, right?
I think by pick 55, all 3 of the
Hairston, which they could
Barron,
be. He reminds me of kind of like Tariq Woolen,
right? Tariq Woolen
in Seattle, right? That's what popped up in my head when you just mentioned all those attributes about him. So I don't think they're not reaching at all. They're not reaching at all.
I think it would probably be viewed as a reach, because of, but so to me, when I see Walter Nolan and I think about Walter Nolan versus Derek Harmon, it's like, so here's their floors for those that are watching, here's Derek Harmon's floor. Here's Walter Nolan's ceiling. Here's Derek Harmon's ceiling. And I think about, we're putting him with Jesse Minter and Mike Elston. That's the thing with Porter.
That's why I don't think it'll be a reach.
Right. So that's what I'm thinking with Porter. It's like, I'm putting him with Clink Scale and Jesse Minter. And it's like, if you can take those tools and just, because he showed it, but it's just a year. And it's like, how do you reconcile 1 year of playing corner, man, in a position that's all about feel and reps, and because you got to be able to see it, and if you can't see it, you're dead.
Yeah, most definitely. So, and that's why I asked, what was the pick? What was the round? Right. So
it's 55. So PFF has him as their 64th player. The Chargers have pick 55.
I think the Chargers would. I mean, the fan base would probably be very upset if we don't go running back at that pick,
or tight end,
at that pick, right? So yeah, don't hold me to it. We'll revisit in about a year from now and be talking about if he was a reach or not for whoever grabs him.
Yeah, I mean, you still have Jacob Parrish. I like Noah Williams out of Cal. He's more of a third-round prospect, maybe even like late third round. And then, like I said, you've got the Benjamin Morrison, who, again, had he not had the injury, would probably be in the conversation as, kind of the hip injury, I should say, hip surgery, would probably be in the conversation as being in that top 3 with those other guys, beyond, obviously, Travis Hunter, who's, don't know what to call him, receiver, corner, both.
What do you think about that, Mike? 1 second. What do you think about that?
I think it's great. Good for him, man. Play him and see how it goes. That's kind of the way I would approach it. Is I didn't think there was any chance he was going to be able to do it at Colorado. I was like, there's no way he's going to do this. And he did. And he did it at a very high level, And
it looks very effortless.
Yeah. So it's like, why not? You can't do that in the NFL. Well, just try,
Try.
try. It's
Or if you have him at wide receiver and you only bring him in on third downs or pass
right,
situations, right? Something you
right.
sprinkle in earlier in his career because the playbooks are totally different. For those at
Yeah,
home, like that playbook looks like those books stacked behind me
it's
all
like that.
together,
Yeah.
So I don't know about his learning curve, but it's going to definitely be a learning curve compared to what he had to consume at the college level on offense and defense.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I wouldn't do with him is corner heavy only. Like I would absolutely lean the other way. I
Agreed.
would, just because you're on the, you have a better chance to impact the game, I think, as a receiver, especially on
100%.
that team. You're
100%.
immediately their number one receiver. And
100%.
you're immediately someone that a defensive coordinator is like, oh man, this is a problem.
Yes, sir.
So, and he's still a really good corner as well. So, like, I think that's, but when I hear people say, "Oh no, I'd rather I'd make him a corner and sprinkle him in on receiver stuff," I'm like, "Yeah, I don't
Mm.
know if that makes us," but whatever.
Yeah,
So anyway,
that's their
um,
job.
so let's do this. What did I do 4 rounds? Yeah, I did 4 rounds. So here we go. We'll take the corner. We'll take our big swing, our home run swing on Darien Porter in the second round, and just give him to Clink and watch him do his magic. And then when it comes to tight end and running back, here we go. My guy's still there in the third round. Bang! I can take my Harold Fannin, one of my favorite players. Look like your former teammate Gatesy out there, the way he plays, and you just can't figure out why this guy is getting
Why
open
is
and
he
how
open?
why is he open? I don't know.
Yeah.
Antonio Gates is just open. That's what happens. It's how it
Yeah.
works. At running back, I still have. Let's see, who do we have available at running back? We still have Travis's brother, Trevor Etienne. That's a little rich for him. Wow, running backs really went off the board.
Mhm.
Harvey's gone. Scadaboo's gone. Dylan Sampson's gone. Wow, jeez. All these quarterbacks, guys. About Damian Martinez, I like him out of Miami. DJ Giddens, I like out of Kansas State. Devin Neal's fun to watch, dude. He wrecks some dudes. So I would be more apt to take, and let's see, wide receiver. This is probably, okay. So Jalen Royals is still there. Kyle Williams is still there. So you're still in good shape for receiver too. So
Yeah.
I think that just, whichever, whatever. I'll take Kyle Williams here. Yeah, I'll take Kyle Williams. And then we'll see if like the Gunnar Helms and those guys are left in the fourth round. And if we can get our tight end there. And let's see, tight end. We've got, oh, wow. They really screwed me on this. No Gunnar Helm. Mitchell Evans is still there.
Back to your drawing board, money.
Yeah, here we go. How about running back? What do we got? Wow, these guys flew off the board. That's what makes this kind of fun. It's like, all right, well,
that's
if
how
that's
it
the path you're
goes.
going to go.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, you assume you're just going to be able to say, hey, oh, by the way, JJ Pegues went the pick ahead of this. That's a fun one, dude. If you want to kind of dial up some YouTube videos, Pegues from Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
He's a squatty defensive tackle and a good player, really good player, defensive tackle, but they line him up as a direct snap guy. And
wow,
not only does he take the direct snap and plow through the line, he will take the direct snap and LaDainian Tomlinson it, and he will leap over the line. And you just see these linebackers like, no.
Yeah, no.
Here comes this 315-pound guy.
That's a business decision.
It is hilarious to watch. I don't know how many touchdowns, but I mean, he picked up, every single one of these short yardage direct snaps I watched. Every single one.
I don't doubt it.
Every single one. And they got him in the so that's what's, and like I was thinking about it. I was like, man, Pegues is like a big time Charger guy. When they think of last year, I wish I could remember the stat. But I pointed out the Chargers lined up with 4. Let me think if I have it right. I think it was no. So you have all 5 offensive linemen. Yeah, I think it was 8.
Mm-hmm.
The Chargers lined up with at least 8 players who weighed at least 260 pounds. Let's just say it was the most in the NFL, and it was like 75 times. The next team, I wish I could pull up this stat. Darn it, I had it in one of the games. The next team was like Baltimore with 3. Because they had Tucker Fisk, who was 265, Matt Locke in the backfield, all 5 offensive linemen, and Will Dissly. So you had those 8 players on the field that were at least 265 pounds.
Just bully ball.
right? And then I think about Pegues, and it's like, because, for whatever it's worth, I get the sense that Herbert doesn't really like sneaking the ball.
Yeah,
I feel like that's, not something that, some court, like Phil didn't like doing it.
yeah, he sure
Philip didn't.
didn't.
He did not let some players like it. Some players don't. So it's like,
Hey, those sneaks, those quarterbacks get teed off on.
that's what I mean. Because
Like
they know it's their
teed off.
chance.
I used to, QB sneak, I love it.
That's what people don't realize. Like, what's his problem? Why doesn't he
Yeah,
like it? Tell him.
I can't
Go ahead,
wait.
tell him, Jahleel. Why don't they like it?
I mean, it's your chance to tee off on the quarterback without getting a penalty. Like you can hit him in the neck, back, shoulder, helmet decal. You're not getting a penalty because you're fighting for an inch. So
Right.
it's like everything goes, and the quarterbacks know that. Dude. They know that.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, hey, draft Pegues in the 4th round, man, and just freaking tell Herbert, you're good, dude. Hey, 4th
Watch
and
out.
1, Pegues, get in there, man. Let's go.
That'd be a tush push and a half.
It's not even a tush push. It's a get the hell out of my way. Because here comes my tush. Here comes my, let me get what his measurables are. Here comes my 6'2", 325-pound body.
Oh, my God.
It is so fun to watch, man.
Oh,
and it just, to me, it's like this guy is made for Jim Harbaugh and is made for Greg Roman. So there you go. That's so we're on the clock here, our 4th round. I would have taken Pegues had he been there. What the hell? I'll take 2 defensive tackles in the first 4 yard. There's boy, oh boy. Let's go to what did I take the wide receiver? I think I did. Yeah.
Yes, you did.
I did. I took the wide receiver, so I'm looking at tight end. Let's see what's there. Anyway, whatever. Not important. That'll do it. That's fun. And with Pegues. Everybody, that's your homework.
That's
go back
my homework. I'm literally when we get off, I'm looking him up. I gotta check him out.
Pull up the YouTube and just JJ. It's Pegues, pronounced Pegues, Pegues. Just whatever. Search on YouTube JJ Pegues direct snap. And man, have some fun.
No doubt.
I'm jealous that you're going to see it.
No doubt.
I keep going back and I'm like, I can't get enough of this. It's so good. All right. Well, that. Again, I think that'll do it. Just there's, we've kind of been talking in circles a little bit because we're just waiting, man. We're a week away.
We're in the wake. We're in the wake right now.
1 week. Yeah. And by the way, next week we'll do the pod after the draft. Obviously, we're not going to do it before. So we'll wait till the end of the first round. We'll do it late. Same thing on Friday. We'll knock that out as well after the Friday draft. So we'll get you 2 next week to cover those first 3 rounds. And it's fun, man. Really enjoyed it. Jahleel, everybody check out JJ Pegues. That's a fun watch.
Let's go.
And and we'll be back again next week. Appreciate you, everybody. Bolt up.
Bolt up.